Hi, good morning, everyone. Could the people at the very back confirm if they can hear me? Yes? Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for being here. I start with a little anecdote. 5 centuries ago, the Coromandel coast was where the future arrived first. Portuguese carracks anchored off Mylapore. Dutch traders established factories in Pulicat. The English East India Company built Fort St. George, just a few kilometers from where we sit. Ships carried spices, textiles, and ideas across oceans, but they also carried something less visible, the question of who would set the rules of engagement for a newly connected world. The powers that answered that question shaped the next 300 years of history. We are gathered on the very same coast this morning. The ships are gone. The question has not changed. Only the cargo has. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Coromandel AI Conclave 2026. Take a moment and look around this room. We are over 100 people strong, both here and those who have chosen to join us virtually. Researchers who build the models, founders who ship the products, policymakers who write the rules, lawyers who interpret them, engineers who make systems work, investors who fund the bets, and students who will inherit whatever we decide to build. This is not, by no measure, a typical conference audience. This is a cross-section of everyone who will determine how India engages with artificial intelligence over the next decade. And it matters that we are gathered here at the IIT Madras Research Park, home to India's first technology business incubator, birthplace of companies now valued in billions. When we talk about AI moving from laboratory to market, this is where that journey often begins. So it seems fitting, befitting even, that conversation about AI's future happen in a place where that future is already being built, tested, and shipped. Now, allow me to place this conclave in a larger frame. Next month, New Delhi hosts the India AI Impact Summit 2026, India's flagship global forum on artificial intelligence organized around what the ministry calls the sutras of people, planet, and progress. Sutras, threads that hold a fabric together. I understand the word is deliberate. The challenge of AI governance is precisely that, weaving innovation and safety, growth and rights, competitiveness and values into something coherent, something that holds. Pre-summit events like ours exist to feed that weave. We are not here merely to discuss, we are here to generate insights, practitioner-led, grounded in South Indian and Global South realities that will travel from this room to Delhi and from Delhi into national policy. What we say today is meant to matter beyond today, which brings me to why we chose Chennai. The Coromandel AI Conclave is an official pre-summit event hosted by Peritum Partners, and we are holding it in this city deliberately. There is a tendency in national conversations about technology for the discourse to center on a few familiar cities. Bangalore for startups, Hyderabad for IT services, Delhi for policy. Chennai often gets overlooked. This needs to change. But consider the facts. India's first software technology park was established here in 1992. Tamil Nadu produces more engineering graduates than any other state. The automotive corridor that pioneered India's manufacturing renaissance now pivots to electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles. And IIT Madras, the institution on whose research park we stand, has produced more founders of billion-dollar companies than any other Indian engineering school. The South Indian technology ecosystem has a perspective worth articulating. So does the Global South more broadly. Nations building AI capacity without Silicon Valley's resources or Brussels' regulatory approach nations where AI must work for 1 billion people who have never used a computer, nations where the question is not how do we regulate artificial intelligence, but how do we ensure AI serves us before it is shaped entirely by others. This conclave exists to carry the certain perspective forward. What we say in Chennai is intended to reach Delhi, and what reaches Delhi, we hope, will reach the world. Before I outline the day ahead, let me pause to acknowledge those who made this possible. Standard Chartered Bank is our event sponsor. Among India's oldest foreign banks with over 165 years in this country, they specialize in cross-border transactions, foreign direct investment, overseas direct investment, external commercial borrowings, trade finance, areas that will only grow more complex as AI reshapes how capital and data move across borders. We are delighted to have Mr. Bala, Zonal Heads Treasury, and Mr. Deepak, Associate Director, representing Standard Chartered Bank today. Thank you for your support. So, to the substance. Our Masters of Ceremony, Anjali and Akshay, will guide you through the full program, 2 fireside chats, and 3 plenaries between now and 2 p.m. They will introduce each session properly, but let me offer one frame of how these sessions connect. We begin with opportunity. How do we make AI actually work? Inside organizations, not just as pilots that never ship. From there, we move to harm. Deepfakes, identity theft, the $25 million Hong Kong fraud where every person, just to cite an instance, on a video call was fabricated in real time, and we close with governance. Who decides what is safe? Who bears liability? How India builds frameworks fit for our realities, rather than importing them wholesale. Opportunity, harm, governance. That's the arc of the day. The sessions will fill in the substance. Before I move any further, a brief word on how we conduct ourselves today. So many people in one room works only if we extend each other the courtesy of attention. Please silence your phones. Respect time limits. Our Masters of Ceremony and moderators will enforce them, and we ask that you make their job easy. Disagree vigorously if you must, but disagree with respect. And if you have any trash, coffee cups, wrappers, empty water bottles, anything at all, please dispose of it in the bins provided. Keeping the etiquette of a place like the IIT Madras Research Park is our collective responsibility. The full rules of conduct are in your Luma confirmation and posted around the venue for your ease of reference. With that, it is my honor and privilege to invite Anjali and Akshay to the dais in just a moment. But before I step away, let me leave you with one small thought. 500 years ago, the contest on the coast was about who could control the sea routes, the infrastructure of global commerce back in the day. The powers that controlled the routes controlled the trade, the powers that controlled the trade wrote the rules, and the powers that wrote the rules shaped the world. Today, the contest is about who shapes the rules for intelligence itself, the frameworks that determine how knowledge is created, how decisions are made, how trust is established in an age when machines can think, create, and will also persuade. The powers that answers those questions in this decade will shape the century that follows. History does not record the names of those who deliberated endlessly. It records those who showed up, did the work, and built institutions that outlasted them. India has a voice in that contest, in that discussion. Whether the voice is heard depends on whether we do the work, the hard, unglamorous, trite, practitioner-led work of translating ambition into action, policy into practice, and conversation into consequence. We are over 100 people today who chose to be in this auditorium on this morning asking these questions. This is by no measure or means a small thing. That is how futures are written. One conversation, one conviction, one room at a time. Let us make it happen. Now, before I hand it over to Anjali, we have for your refreshments and for any sort of drinks or eateries that you may like to indulge in, a Chai King stall right next to the registration desk on the outside. Please feel free to indulge yourself. Thank you for being here. Handing over to you, Anjali.
Thank you, Sarthak, for setting the tone. A very good morning, everyone. My name is Anjali, and with me is my host, Akshay. On behalf of the Coromandel AI Conclave team and all our partners, welcome to the Coromandel AI Conclave at IIT Madras Research Park. We'll be getting started in a few minutes. Kindly take your seats and please keep your phones on silent once we begin. Today's agenda is designed as a clean arc from commercial execution to human impact, and finally to the governance guardrails that will define responsible scale. In our first session, we begin with a founder's lens, what it takes to build and ship AI in the real world, and a conversation that looks at AI beyond the hype. What changes when you move from rule engines to LLMs, why pilots stall, how organizations adapt, and what transparency and regulation should look like as adoption accelerates. Hosting this conversation is Mr. Karthik Jayakumar, the co-founding partner who leads the general corporate mergers and acquisition practice at Peritum Partners. Joining him is Mr. Suresh Sambandam, founder and CEO of KissFlow, a global SaaS company with customers in over 100 countries. He holds 3 US patents and brings deep expertise in product innovation and scaling globally competitive software companies in India. Suresh is also a well-known ecosystem builder, playing a foundational role in India's product landscape through initiatives like NASSCOM Product Conclave, SaaS Boomi, and Idea Patre. And he has been a driving force behind the $1 trillion vision for Tamil Nadu through the Dream Tamil Nadu Policy Think Tank. Please put your hands together for Karthik Jayakumar and Mr. Suresh Sambandam.
Check, check.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Suresh sir,
Thank
so
you.
much for joining us today. I'm excited to host this fireside with you and to learn different perspective from you, given the multiple hats that you don as a successful entrepreneur, also being a voice, also being somebody who has built an incredible, instrumental in building an incredible SaaS community from here in Chennai. And we've also got the side of you nurturing the next generation of Tamil Nadu's founders, and you are an incredibly strong voice in helping shape policy towards AI as well. Through this session, I'm hoping to learn from you, from that entire AI journey that you've had, the unique journey, the position that you've occupied starting back in '97 when you started with Hewlett-Packard, back then to the generative AI side of KissFlow today. I was hoping to understand what fundamental shift you're seeing in AI today. Does it look different from the previous technology cycles?
Sure. Sorry. Do you mind if I ask some questions to audience? Like, how many of you are like founders? Okay. And how many of you are connected to AI or building something in the AI space? Okay, that's good. So there is sizable AI audience. This one. So first of all, thanks for this opportunity to be here. AI is like a hot topic. Just apologies if you can. I didn't quite catch my mind was just thinking about the audience, like who's there, so that I can customize my answer for the audience. So I sort of missed your question.
No problem.
Yeah, sorry.
Just to rephrase this, through the journey in your career, you've seen various technology cycles. Today, do you see there's a difference between each cycle?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I don't know like how many of you, when I started my career, I started with the DOS operating system. It was in 91, 92. There was no Windows, there is no graphical user interface when I started. So I've literally seen the paradigm of programming, computing from DOS onwards. And there was just SCO Unix just launched at that time, 91, 92. It used to come in 11 floppy disks. If you haven't seen it, it's called a 5.25-inch floppy disk. And you install the 10th disk and the 11th will suddenly say error. And then you got to start all over again from the first disk. It's a very interesting journey. My first hard disk was, how many of you can't follow Tamil? Okay, so there is only 40 MB and there is like 4 megabytes in that 40. This is 10% of your space is gone. So from that time to AI world, I think AI, I actually feel AI, unlike the previous paradigm shifts, it's a very, very fundamental paradigm shift because for the first time, computers are thinking. It's really scary. Okay, the first time, the computers are starting to thinking. Until this time, the computers just did what you told them to do. And the only shift that happened was the better way of you telling them what to do. And it did exactly what you wanted them to do. And for the very, very first time, the computers are going to do things that you didn't tell them to do. And it is doing things on their own. That's the very big line of paradigm shift, right? And this is very scary. I don't know if you've been following, how many of you are following me on socials? Okay, not bad. So if you have, for the people who are not following, I just launched a new AI. There are 2 AI apps I've launched in the last, social related, not related to my company. One is called Thirukural.ai. So if you just go to Thirukural.ai, we basically loaded all the Thirukural and all the translations and on all languages. Sorry, just English and Tamil. And the descriptions, and now it's able to give you translations in Gujarati, Hindi, any language, and you can ask any question. You can say, you can just ask in English, tell me about all the kurals that is in Tamil, about talking about kings, it will tell you all the kurals that is talking about things. We have never even programmed for it. There was no programming done for this, right? And then another app that I launched just like a week ago was to collect all the manifesto items. It's called tnmanifesto.ai. You can just sign up. And you can go give your voice input, and you say something like completely different ways, and it understands everything, and then rephrases it and summarizes your inputs in a way that you will be baffled. நான் சொன்னது இவ்வளோ அழகாக அது சொல்லியிருக்கேன். Meaning, whatever I said like so crappy, it actually phrased it accurately in a very beautiful way. Which means this is a kind of paradigm we have never seen before in programming before. So this is fundamentally a huge breakthrough. Huge means huge. And the implications is like as big as inventing electricity. Which means that when electricity was invented, it was not like on electrical department it is getting created. Electricity powered the entire human race. I think AI is not about technology companies or anything like that. AI is going to be in. Yesterday I was speaking in Imagine conference. I was the opening keynote speaker there. I was saying there are 10 unicorn ideas that AI can be used, and most of them, 9 of them are not in the core IT area. One of them is like if you go to Tirupur and Coimbatore, there is a circular spinning machine which actually manufactures garments. If you put a high-speed camera on the spinning machine and connect it back to an AI inferencing model, it can detect errors, very high quality errors on the spinning machine and find out defects in the garment manufacturing without human intervention. That's one of the ideas. And if you prove it in your backyard, we can export it to Vietnam, we can export it to Bangladesh, we can export it to all the Southeast Asia countries where the spinning is happening. And this is like $1 billion idea. And I talked about 10 different ideas like this. I don't want to waste everybody's time here, but only one of them is related to software. 9 of them is related to other industries. The other one was related to windmill, which means it has a far-reaching implications. What you can do with AI has a very, very far-reaching implications. Hopefully that gives a context of what AI can do and the paradigm shift.
Thank you so much for that. What I'm also hoping to understand is, given the $1 trillion economy vision, do you think currently there is sufficiency in terms of what the state is doing? Do you think the infrastructure is sufficient to cause that level of development for AI to contribute in that direction of the economic boom?
See, the $1 trillion vision was first put forward. I created an organization called Kanavu Tamil Nadu, Dream Tamil Nadu, which first put out the $1 trillion vision in 2018. And when this new government came, they basically they took over that and made it a government mission now. But it's a North Star goal. It is not necessary that we need to achieve it. But it gives you a huge vision and a direction and an aspiration. It is like climbing the Himalayas. I would be happy even if I go till the base camp. Because going all the way from Kanyakumari till the base camp itself is a great achievement, right? But if you can climb the Himalayas, it's even more greater. But having said that, Tamil Nadu has achieved nominal GDP growth. I think it's 11.6% or something like that. Without adjusting for inflation, it is 16%, which essentially is 2 times the average of any state that has grown in India. 2 times the average. Every state, other state is growing at 6 to 7%, and Tamil Nadu has grown close to 12%. We have to grow at 14% CAGR to hit the 1 trillion by 2030. Even if you grow at 12% CAGR, we will hit the $1 trillion vision by 2032 or 2033. It's okay. If you hit 2032 or 2033 $1 trillion, I was doing this analysis on Gemini. I actually switched from ChatGPT to Gemini, by the way. So I actually find ChatGPT more like patronizing, and it's just telling me what I wanted to hear, and it's just like feeding your egos all the time. And it's not giving me like the more accurate perspective that I want. I'm sorry, I forgot to switch this off. So let me switch this off. Yeah, so I switched to Gemini, and when I asked Gemini, hey, in 2031, 2032, if Tamil Nadu achieves 1 trillion, what did it really mean? It basically said it will be one of the G20 countries. If Tamil Nadu achieves 31, 32, $1 trillion, it will be one of the G20 countries in the world. So what bigger aspiration that we need? So one state in India is going to be among the top 20 countries in the world. But that's a massive achievement. Even if you offset it 1 or 2 years here, it's great. If we adopt AI in a big way and massively double down on AI, we can easily achieve it even within the 2030 time frame. And we are actually, if you really look at it, we beat Karnataka. See, Bangalore might have all the hype, but look at Karnataka's GDP versus Tamil Nadu's GDP. We are 2 times Karnataka's GDP. Simple. So we beat Karnataka in every other way. So we have the most holistic ecosystem in the country because we have manufacturing, we have heavy manufacturing, we have automobile manufacturing, we have electronics, we have software, we have leather, we have textile, we have chemical. We just don't have so much petrochemicals, which is mostly is there in Gujarat. But other than that, every other industry, we contribute 30 to 40% of the overall India's production. We are massive. And no single industry can bring down Tamil Nadu. If one industry, like IT industry goes down, Tamil Nadu will not suffer. Because we are only like 11% of the overall GDP, that's it. But it is not the case for Karnataka. If IT goes down, the whole Karnataka will shut down. So that's the kind of resilient economy that we have. And we have the largest MSME population. What that means? See, if you don't have MSME, what will happen is all the money will be within the rich people. How does money go to the poor people? The factories have all the MSMEs, which actually give all the work to them, and they basically employ the people, and that is how money trickles down to the economy. Otherwise, you will have crony capitalism, because you just have one cream of people who are making all the money, and everything is done through automation, and nobody else is getting the money at the lowermost level. So in those angles, if you look at it, we are actually in a very, very good space. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Sorry, I'm giving long answers or what?
That's perfectly good.
Are you guys okay with? Okay, sure.
I think this takes me to another very burning question, perhaps, that a lot of young founders have, or first-time founders perhaps have.
Sure.
Being someone in the ecosystem, also seeing many businesses that build to a pilot phase, perhaps get stuck in a piloting loop sometimes. What, in your view, is that execution gap that's not allowing for people to break past that to build significant scale?
In AI specifically?
Yes.
Yeah. I think people have still not really trying really well. If you don't mind, I'll do you a 1-minute demo of something, okay? So I'll give you an example of how to try something, how to use AI and try something really well, okay?
Hi, this is Salon Thora Concierge. Would you like to book or manage an appointment today?
Hey, I want to cancel my appointment.
I don't see any upcoming appointments for you. Would you like to book a new appointment?
What kind of services do you have?
We offer a range of categories: color, hair treatments, house service, hair extensions, and haircut or styling. Which category would you like to explore?
Do you have a massage?
We don't have a dedicated massage service, but we do offer a full body massage head spa shampoo. Would that be something you'd like to book?
Yeah, I can try that. Do you have some choices here in terms of my masseur?
Do you prefer a specific stylist, or is anyone fine?
Okay, you can pick something for me.
Got it. I'll select a stylist for you. When would you like to come in for the full body massage head spa shampoo?
Hey, I changed my mind. Can you cancel this whole conversation?
Understood. No problem at all. If you need assistance in the future, feel free to reach out.
So this is a real AI in action, in production. This is a company called Booking Bee, which basically helps. This is one of the companies I've invested in. This is a company that I mentored for 3 years. When the AI wave came, it took so much time to polish it, to make it like close to human interaction, right? So this is a real salon running in Florida, a real service, a real number. I just canceled it at the end because I don't want to go into their system. So this kind of quality is possible. You can't even sense that's a non-human interaction. It's like close to human. And this is a completely unorchestrated conversation, right? You can just have like any I just say, all these things, it ignores everything and it just picks the exact conversation and then gives me the connection. And it can tell, I want to cancel my appointment. It went to the back-end system and found I didn't have an appointment, right? It is that intelligent. You can actually program it. People have to put in the effort to program it like that, and it will do it. And people are not investing and putting this deep effort. People are just putting this shallow efforts. If you put the deep effort, you can actually crack very complex, sophisticated problems.
Do you also feel that could potentially be because of lack of education of its capabilities, or?
It just requires a lot of hard work. People are expecting, put little bit effort and quick wins. They want to become billionaires very fast. That doesn't happen. You just have to put in it takes like 3 years to do this, man. And we started when the AI came in. AI didn't start, we started with ML. We started doing machine learning before the Gen AI came in, and we were trying to build the model and voice learning and all of these things, and it wasn't doing well. And timings is all about, startups is all about timing, and suddenly Gen AI came, we dropped all our ML nonsense and then switched to Gen AI, and then the early versions of Gen AI was pathetic. But we stayed at it. And we tune, every small changes everything. Right now, there is like if you notice, we orchestrated like a keyboard typing and things like that just to fill the gap. There is a 2-second gap. So we orchestrated the typing thing just to make sure the user, if you look at Gen AI, it just keeps giving you the text so that the users are engaged. It actually takes time because the people have created the perception to keep the users engaged. So that 2-second gap is there. That we are still fixing it. We wanted to make it 1 second. So, but that's the kind of thing that is required from founders. If you're founders, that level of work, hard work, and deep work is required to make things happen.
Thank you so much for that, sir. I think that little demo leads me to the next question. More in terms of just looking at the capability of AI and looking at the news around us of so many layoffs happening, and the fact also that a lot of places are seeing lesser utilizability of engineers today. Do you see a lot of people going potentially out of jobs? And 2, if someone had to still continue to remain relevant, someone perhaps that's just common man or someone who's an engineer today, what in your view would they need to do to remain relevant?
Sure. I see like we have 8 minutes, but it looks like we might need a little bit more time. If I want to leave some questions for the audience, time for questions for audience. I think there is only one thing. If you resist AI, you will be left behind. I think there is nothing else. You just have to embrace it. The people who are going to be laid off or people who are going to be left behind are the people who fight it. You deny it. you think AI will not do it. You are the guys who are going to be left behind. The guys who are going to really benefit or ride the wave are the people who embrace it and embrace it aggressively. Like there is no tomorrow. Embrace it now. Embrace it today. Right? So when I started programming in the 90s, the only thing I did was sleep. I didn't probably even eat less, but maybe I ate well. Ate well, slept. I just worked like mad, 16, 19 hours a day. There's no tomorrow. I think that's another moment has come, the AI moment. You just work and get it done. So if you embrace it, you will make it. Make it big. Yeah, we can make multi-billion-dollar companies here. And AI is a great neutralizer. See, no longer you can complain you don't have technology. You can go to Claude Code, and you can code anything, any damn thing. And you need like 2 people to do that, 3 people to do it. You don't need 100 people. You can't complain, I don't have money, I don't have resources, I don't have knowledge, I don't know GTM. You can go to like Gemini and ask, what will be the GTM plan for this? It can tell you what will be the GTM plan that will work for this. Everything is democratized. There is nothing you can complain. It is your own aspiration, will, perseverance, hard work, that is the limitation. No longer money, anything, knowledge, access. You can't just complain about anything. Yeah.
Being somebody on the business side, do you feel that regulation is necessary, or do you feel that's going to be something that stifles the potential growth?
I think some AI regulation is necessary. Maybe not so. I'm most worried about not the Gen AI. We are still in the Gen AI paradigm. Okay. I think just you anticipate huge regulation in the AI space as soon as early version of AGI comes. So people are not so much panicking for regulation right now. But when AGI comes, I am expecting all the governments to jump and regulate. Because AGI will be like a big killer, right? I'm speculating at this point in time, Mark Zuckerberg is actually working. So Mark actually missed the Gen AI world. He just missed that game. So right now the fight is between OpenAI, which most likely get bought over by Microsoft, versus Google. And Google has the upper hand right now in terms of technology superiority and all of that. So right now, technology-wise, Google is more superior, but mentally, positioning-wise, ChatGPT is what people are remembering. But the fight is between these 2 things, and slowly Google is winning that game. And you can see, even in the Google main page, they put the AI mode. And it's just only time the AI mode will become the default mode. Once they make AI mode the default mode, common public will be using AI. And OpenAI will have to rethink their strategy. So I think Google will eventually win this game. But this is AGI, this is Gen AI. But if you go to the AGI game, Mark has thought, like, I missed this game. So he's basically thinking, I'm going to invest in deep R&D to go and catch the AGI wave, which is like 3 years away or 4 years away. When AGI comes, that's when regulation really have to come. Because that is a much more fundamental disruptor. And governments will ban, I'm sure. They're going to ban what AGI should do. They should probably get permission before launching something. All that will come. But right now, there will be some limited regulations will be there related to data privacy, what you can do, like deep fake, all that stuff will be there right now. It is required. Because right now I see like Grok is stripping people naked on Twitter, right? So those kind of stuff is like so scary and so unacceptable. Those kind of regulations is required right now. But the AGI is when the real regulations will have to come. Otherwise, I think we are in for a big crisis as a human society. We'll all have to be in some sort of what is called minimum basic, what is it? Like they give you minimum from the government, right? Universal basic income. So you will have to all go into some sort of a universal basic income.
Thank you so much for that. While you did briefly touch on it, I have one last question for you. If you had to suggest one specific regulation in relation to AI as it is today, what is it that you would suggest that we look at?
I think in current world, all my regulation mind is only related to privacy. It is different forms and shapes of privacy-related regulations. The privacy-related, like the example that I just said, that's really unacceptable, right? You can't have somebody stripped naked in public, right? So those kind of stuff, there are variations of that, but all is centered around privacy. That is one. The second one is, like, if like for example, I bring my data, can the platforms use my data to train their models? Or do they basically get permission to train their models using my data, or is it taken for granted, for example? These are like the two big buckets under which I think some regulations have to be there in place. And it is often the big companies that misuse it, right? It's not the small players. Like the GDPR, for example, although it has affected all the small companies as well, but the GDPR which the European Union came up with is essentially to catch Facebook, Google, YouTube, Instagram, all those people who are taking the common public for granted. So it is meant to regulate them more than a small company, but you can't put a rule saying that only it applies to big companies, not to small companies.
Thank you so much for that. I think this fireside now gives us a little bit of a sneak peek into what's there in store for all of you through the rest of the day's sessions. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you. Thank you. No, we're going to have questions from audience? Okay. Oh, sure. Thank you, guys. Happy to answer any questions you have. You can email me if it is required, suresh@kissflow.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Karthik and Mr. Suresh. That was an extremely insightful start. Now, before moving on to the next panel, we'd like to request Ms. Durga Bhatt, the co-founding partner who leads the disputes practice of Peritum Partners, to honor Mr. Suresh with a small token of appreciation. We'll now move to our first panel titled From Hype to Strategy, Charting the Path of India Inc. in the New AI Economy. This discussion is about cutting through the hype and getting to execution. What's working, what's failing, and what Indian enterprises actually need to scale AI from pilots to production. To moderate this panel, we once again welcome Mr. Karthik Jaikumar, and joining him are Mr. Vineet Vijay Raghavan, Director at Bright Academy with over 2 decades of experience spanning investment, business development, and strategic advisory across emerging technology and innovation ecosystems, actively engaged with founders and stakeholders across areas like Web3, climate tech, and next-gen startups. Vineet has participated in multiple multi-stakeholder initiatives and industry forums focused on innovation, energy efficiency, and ecosystem collaboration. His work reflects a deep interest in VC and PE investing, startup ecosystems, and future technologies, positioning him as a connector between capital, entrepreneurs, and transformative ideas. Further, we have Mr. Ravi Venkatraman, Managing Director and Whole-Time Director at Carvi Innotech, a seasoned turnaround specialist with over 3 decades of leadership in IT services across India and international markets, known for enterprise sales leadership and brand building, P&L ownership, and scaling across sectors including telecom, BFSI, government, manufacturing, and IT. He's also one of India's top 50 brand builders with experience of leading global scale projects and transformative initiatives across APAC, Europe, SAARC, and Africa. His expertise spans outsourcing ecosystem management, M&A, and large enterprise solutions. We also have Mr. Suren Gounder, founder and CEO of Tango AI, a pioneer in applying AI and computer vision to retail analytics. Through Tango AI, he has helped major retail brands convert existing CCTV infrastructure into intelligent systems that improve conversion, optimize store operations, and enhance operational adherence. Before this, Suren worked at Credit Suisse in New York in equities finance trading, building advanced trading analytic tools before bridging the gap between online and offline retail intelligence. His platform is now deployed across 1,200 plus retailers in India and overseas. Please welcome the panel with a round of applause.
Am I audible? Clear?
Hi, audible?
Ravi sir, you can hear us clear?
I can hear you very clearly. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everybody.
Is my voice is clear? I'm using some extra effort to make myself audible because I'm using a mic. Yeah.
No, absolutely. No. We can hear you clear. Thank you so much for that. This session is a really interesting one. We have varied perspectives in all three of our panelists. To maybe get this started, to just get a few opening remarks, I'll start with Suren. Suren, more from your journey with Tango AI, with being somebody who has gone from, obviously from pilot to significant scale and your acquisition. I was hoping to understand from you, from your journey, is it replicable? Is it something that today demands something completely different?
Hi, Karthik. Thanks for having me. I think it's a great starting point, right, to talk about all the difficulty and all the challenges in getting started. And I think the odds are pretty against you, right, as a startup founder, as someone who's looking to venture out and build something. I read someone posted saying, the dumbest advice is when someone says, quit your job and go follow your passion. And it's also the smartest advice, right, in many ways, because we tend to excel in whatever we are passionate about. But let me talk about the odds and then what it takes to actually try and build a replicable story around that, right? And the, odds show up in many forms, right? Things against you show up in many forms as you're a startup founder. Personally, what happened was, we started in about 2018, and 2019 COVID hit, right? So, and I think till today, COVID is probably one of the biggest testing points for a lot of entrepreneurs, right? Something we've never experienced, something we thought would never happen. Countries shut down. So we had at that point about 10, 15 employees, payrolls to be handled, early pilots ongoing with credible customers. I would say about 3 customers that we had. We had a product that we had built out. And we also had a term sheet. So we had a term sheet for about, I think at that point, 5 crores in funding, which we had signed, which was significant, right? At that point for a 0 to 1 company, first round, significant. So I get this call saying, from the analyst, I get this call saying, hey, I think we're going into lockdown. We'll probably have to slow down the process and figure out where things go in terms of capital calls and all of that. And that's just, hits an entrepreneur in a slightly hard way, right? You really have to now figure out what it means in terms of your capital constraints, your cash flow commitments, and we probably had like 1 month of runway, right? So that's where we were at. We had about 1 month of runway. So we had to make quick decisions in terms of talking to employees, making sure they are partnered with us for the journey, and talking to customers, right? And talking to customers is when I think I learned the biggest things, right? So your customers end up being your biggest supporters and your ambassadors, right? If you have the right product. So I went out and spoke to, I remember having a conversation with Piyush of Lenskart and telling him like, we are probably, tight on funding. We had a commitment and this didn't, things are going slower than what we expected. So it was, it was kind of refreshing when he said, you have a great product, right? So we had 3 customers that were already using the product. All those 3 customers were continuing to operate their businesses, and they were able to step in and say, yeah, we'll do a quick funding round where we will put in X percentage. Others, if you have VCs or others, they can also participate in the round. What that helped me understand was, and what I'm coming to is, what do we need for a 0 to 1 replicable scenario is great product market fit, right? If you have great product market fit, your customers love you, you will get support, right? It can be through customers, it can be through VC funding. Keeping teams lean, right? We were fortunate to have a lean team that could do a lot, and our cash flows were well within manageable realms. And then I think, like this, odd shows up in many ways, right? And then you have to figure out what are those pivots and tidbits to kind of navigate these things. But I would say GTM is probably the single most thing to crack to have a replicable story.
Sure. Thank you so much for that. Vineet, so from your perspective, you don multiple hats one in the investment world, one with your role with Bright Academy. I was hoping to understand from you, we've seen some statistics about the access to capital dwindling significantly. There are some reports on the internet today which say it's fallen almost by 85% of access to capital for AI businesses. Do you feel this is something that is perhaps an indicator that this is just healthy market discipline, or do you feel this is a genuine problem that may need addressing?
Just like how we've learned, I genuinely believe this is a recalibration phase, right? While AI started, everybody went around trying to figure out businesses, trying to see what works and doesn't work. Right? Foundational models have evolved faster than what we've anticipated, right? There is more money thrown into the problem, there's more resources. Their evolution has now kind of charted a path where we know how they are going. So the very early generation of pray and spray that typically VCs do to kind of figure out what sticks, what doesn't stick, what works, doesn't work, has kind of stopped now. And there is enough understanding about what works, what doesn't work. And that understanding comes from the experience over the last few years. And that's reflecting in the numbers that you're talking about, right?
True.
The average number of, the important point is they're actually pulling the plug reasonably late, right? The average funding that's gone into startups that are closing is north of $2.5 to $3 million. So it's not some angel just writing some check and so on and so forth. It's reasonably good money going in and then pulling the plug. And why is it happening? One, it's happening from a technology standpoint, which I will not bore you with, but the layers are getting peeled. People are realizing wrappers and anything along the path of the foundational model is likely to be a casualty, and where that casualty is likely to happen. Can you figure out an exit before you're a casualty, before you're a victim? Can you get out of that? And in any early technology, VCs look for three things that are monetizable, right? There are three important things in a startup that get monetized. One is the team, one is the product that you build, third is the distribution that you've built, right? All three are monetizable differently to different stakeholders. So today the VCs have a perception of, they have a very good understanding of the team capability, which they did not have 2-3 years ago, because there's a lot of data points available to see what the team is capable of. You have to have an exceptional team. Exceptional team is highly valuable, right? Just see what's happened 3-4 days ago with faculty and Accenture, right? Accenture got a 400-man team for $1 billion, right? Essentially, I mean, last 20 days, I've had calls from pretty much every service company's leaders saying what I should do here. Right? So that signal has come. So the teams are starting to get acquired, and in any early stage of technology, that happens. Similarly, what's happening is VCs have also started seeing that today, the metrics that they had earlier in terms of revenue are not working. For example, the most common one, ARR. The person that invented ARR, Brett Queener, says ARR is no more useful in AI. He's a VC, he says it's not useful anymore, right? And true to his words, the drop in revenue year on year is about 40 to 70%, depending on which startup, which means that's not a reliable metric. Right? What people are looking for is new metrics, honest metrics, right? Unit economics should be honest. It can't be a token plus unit economics where people churn out of pilots. You need real customers. Right? So that learning is actually getting factored into startups. There is still a lot of money going into conventional hardcore tech companies, right? Whether somebody is doing verification, whether people are doing layer pipelines, those kinds of infrastructure software plays in AI is getting a lot of capital, because the roadmap for the foundational model is still 3-4 years away to get there, right? Which means that today you have the opportunity to build fast, scale, and sell. So I think that clarity is emerging in VCs. VCs are learning very quickly, and that shift is what you're seeing in numbers today.
Thank you, Vineet. So I think we've got two interesting perspectives. One from a person who's been there, done that. Two from Vineet sir's perspective. And I'd like to hear from Ravi sir. Ravi sir, in your career that's spanned over 25 years with different multinational organizations as well as Indian enterprises, where you've been at the forefront of leading technology and the transformations, through this, what I'd like to understand from you is, could you say that the current AI wave is perhaps comparable to any of the earlier technology cycles? Or do you feel this is perhaps going to go the same way, that it's first hype, then consolidation, and then eventual value creation?
Fantastic. First of all, thank you, Karthik, since this event is happening in the state headquarters of Tamil Nadu. I want to start with a small quote from the 19th century visionary poet, Subramanya Bharati. I don't know how many of you can follow Tamil. In one of his poetry, he does mention, I'm talking about a 19th century poet, he talks about வானை அளப்போம் கடல் மீனை அளப்போம் சந்திர மண்டலத்தில் கண்டு தெளிவோம் சந்தி திருப்பெருக்கும் சாத்திரம் கற்போம் பாரத தேசம் என்று தோள் கொட்டுவோம் is one of my most exciting quote. I do not hesitate talking about that to answer your question. The onset of the technology, this is definitely not going to die. A proof in the pudding, as my earlier speaker was mentioning about the kind of investment the startup ecosystem in India is inviting. You will be surprised to see that there are more than 150 close unicorns from this country, and closer to about 10,000 deep tech companies are emerging from the startup ecosystem from this country. The only thing which I wanted to clarify here is that the AI is not a magic or it's not a menace anymore. How fast you can adapt, how fast you can scale, how fast you can set the trend for the ethical standards, which would drive your business decision. You know, it's not a fad. It's not something which is going to help you to achieve a competitive advantage over your competition just because you are in the framework of AI. AI today is mandatory, essential tool for decision-making process. Therefore, I've transitioned through about 3 odd different technologies in my life, including .com. Some point in time when I started my career, we all know that Y2K, what happened to Y2K, and how India started, you know, becoming a big boom of center of attention for services industry. Now, over a period of time, I think if you look at the past 5 to 7 years, India is emerging as one of the strongest product hub in this country. A lot of investments are going into it. As my earlier speakers did capture, the first one was mentioning about if you get it right and you have a market for it. Therefore, my conclusion would be that this is not something which is going to go away. This will double up in terms of speed. It will necessitate all the enterprises and government, you know, put together that they need to adapt it, because in today's context, nobody would like to build a company which will last forever. People would like to build a company which is quick in adapting, and therefore, I do not foresee in the near future that this will go away. This is going to stay, and it's going to be embedded into our system, and it is going to remain as one of the most powerful tools for us, Karthik.
Thank you so much, Ravi sir. I think that's very helpful insight in the direction that it's more about quick building rather than thinking about the duration of this in terms of how long-lasting it might be. But that leads me to a very interesting topic, which is in relation to today, if you look at the AI that is out there, for instance, we've got the e-Parvai system, which exists in Tamil Nadu, where we've seen incredible levels of accuracy in cataract detection. But we also do see a side of this where we have so many companies that have tried coming up with AI solutions to different problem statements, but many of them don't make it past that pilot phase. Suren sir, my first question is to you in this regard. Being somebody who took tech at that point, built new age tech back then, and had to have conversations with people to integrate that with legacy hardware, you may have faced several challenges that could have come from resistance to have to upgrade to tech which they don't know how long that's going to last? Or am I looking at this very differently? What were the challenges that you faced?
Yeah, I think resistance is always there, Karthik. I don't know if it's resistance or inertia, right? The reluctance to change. And that's always been there even before the AI tailwinds. And we had obviously had a big chunk of that, especially because we're using some forms of sensitive data, some forms of customer data, so on and so forth. And like Sir mentioned, today we are able to build products much faster. We're able to do it with a lot less resources. So I think the best thing to do is to actually go out to customers, right? So to break the resistance very early on, and to make sure that we are building to solve real world problems. So solutions should actually be for the customers where they are able to use it in their day-to-day lives. And that adoption is what breaks the resistance, right? I think that's the one way I would look at it, because for example, we are all using WhatsApp today, right? And we use WhatsApp today because it's so seamless and it's built into our lives, and that created so much adoption. And we don't hesitate sharing information across these channels today because of the convenience factor that's already built into it, right? We're all now adopting some form of ChatGPT, whether it's ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever it is, right? And we end up sharing a lot of personal information, or at least information on these platforms and on these channels, way ahead of conversations we would have with a friend, for example, right? We just had a baby, and I end up asking ChatGPT all the questions that I want to know, even before I go to a doctor. I think that convenience and the effectiveness of the product is what is going to actually break the resistance and allow people to convert and start using products. So resistance is always going to be there. I think building the right solutions that get adoption early on is going to break resistance.
Understood. No, thank you so much for that, Suren sir. I think that leads me to ask for Vineet sir's perspective. As somebody who's looked at hardware-driven utilization of AI rather than using cloud infrastructure, where do you feel the challenge is when it comes to this process of ensuring that it moves from pilot to production? Do you feel the challenge arises from things like data quality, or do you feel that hardware lags far behind the growing tech on the software side?
I'm going to tell you it's not the tech that's the problem, it's the people that are the problem. So if you were to ask me to give you an honest assessment, I think 80% of it is people problem, it's a cultural problem, it's an organizational problem, and perhaps 20% of the blame lies on tech, right? What happens, or what has happened, and I'm speaking from experience that I'm aware of, including the Fortune 500s, is the CXO typically gets a mandate from the board saying that we need to figure out AI, go do something. So there is a shiny new pilot announced, data is pure in the pilot, everything is clean, environment is controlled, no edge cases, put everything works, everybody is happy, board is happy, make a proclamation saying we are AI ready, AI is in every deal, AI is whatever, and so on and so forth, right? But quickly when you start moving to outside that environment, forget even production, right? Multiple questions start coming up, right? I mean, first is the point that you said, how data ready are we, right? How good is our data to be able to handle this? Is it even ready in the first place? Right? Culturally, how are we ready as an organization? Because this workflows move seamlessly across silos, right? What typically in organizations are traditionally silos with power centers concentrated, the workflow suddenly orchestrating itself across these silos with no permission. If it's moving across silos with no permission, who takes ownership? A very classical problem in Fortune 500. I've spoken to multiple of them, interact with them, trying to tell them how to think about this problem, right? Who takes ownership for this? Who gets blamed if something goes wrong? Who takes responsibility? Right? These questions are not easy questions to answer. These questions are questions where legacy is likely going to be your biggest barrier. Right? What you have, how much of code you've built. For technical people, you understand. To build any meaningful AI system in production, there's a lot of refactoring of code that needs to be done. That's not a joke. Right? So how do you even think about this problem at that scale? Right? Really moving to production. Are you even trying to solve the right problem? Or is it something that's mandated by a board, right? The most recent one now is come back and give me a plan for 35% reduction in cost and 20% reduction in manpower and 20% increase in efficiency, right? So this is the new mandate that's going around the large ones, right? So this keeps evolving, and I think culture and organization is going to be a bigger barrier than technology itself, right? Compounding that problem is the skill gap problem, right? For example, I think some numbers I've been seeing in India there is about last year, that's 2025, was about a 53% skill gap in terms of what might be required by AI and what's available. That's actually increasing to about 60-65% this year, 2026. And what are we doing to address it? Are we even ready? Are we even approaching this the right way? If data is any, again, indication, and pardon me, I'm going back again to all numbers, Accenture very recently said, no, we are not ready globally. Right? That's the world's largest IT company, 800,000 employees saying that we are not ready. We have a data science team, we have a data team, we have an AI team of 80,000 employees. Right? 800,000, somewhere stated in their annual reports, is about 78 to 80,000 employees. And they are saying, my 80,000 employees who are AI ready are not ready genuinely. I have now come out in the open and acknowledged that. I actually need a team of 400 run by a quantum physicist to actually come in and change my DNA and make it AI ready. And not only am I buying that 400-man company that's so small compared to my 80,000 member data team and my 800,000 employees, I'm plonking a quantum scientist as the CTO global of Accenture, running a $156 billion budget. That's a signal. That's a very powerful signal to answer your question, right? And I think that's the direction in which we will see things moving in the next 18 months very quickly. The skill gap problem is very real. I've at least met perhaps a couple of hundred IT professionals just around town here saying, what's my future? I'm overwhelmed with what I need to learn. I don't know what to learn. Everything is available. I know everything is there, but what the hell should I learn? What should I do to be relevant 6 months from now, 6 years from now, right? I think it's a huge opportunity waiting, but I mean, those are the issues. I don't think technology per se is a very large issue.
Thank you so much, Vineet sir. I think we've got two very interesting perspectives so far. Ravi sir, from your lens of having occupied multiple roles with large enterprises and also servicing fairly large or incredibly large enterprises yourself, through the different roles over the years, I would want to understand from your perspective, what is it that these large enterprises do different than the younger enterprises in the AI space that are constantly stuck in that pilot loop?
I think that's a very valid question, Karthik. I think irrespective of the size of the organization, I'm sure the other panelists will also agree with me. There are only two things which I normally advocate when you want to convert the technology as a part of your business strategy. Please keep in mind, people are the real differentiator. It's not about algorithm. Right? The gentleman spoke about resistance, right? And adaption and multiple other stuff which we have been discussing now. So one need to keep in mind that people are the real differentiator and it's not the algorithms. I mean, if you inculcate that as part of your design of the strategy for any enterprise, be it a small or medium or big or even government, I mean, it doesn't matter at all. And also you need to understand that no technology ever during our lifespan of time, I mean, you need to understand the human judgment is always amplified. I mean, that is what artificial intelligence is all about. Human judgment is always amplified and it is not replacing it. As long as you can inculcate these two line strategy with any implementation, any product process adoption, or anything which you want to implement that as a strategy respective of the size of the organization. And I'm sure that, rest of the thing will fall in place automatically. To this, I also wanted to add one more thing very, very clearly, is that some of the concern, the other day I was going through a report. Today, the artificial intelligence, especially for those who are into product development, need to keep one thing in mind. They become so powerful and they become so intelligent. When you're trying to run a test, today it's capable of asking, hey, are you running a test? And if your answer is yes, it becomes much more intelligent of giving you the right kind of answer. I mean, I always take this as an example. It's like you are dating. When you are dating, you tend to give one of the best characteristics about each other to each other. And that's where we are. And therefore, I also advocate very, very strongly to the enterprises, irrespective of the small or big or including the product development business entrepreneurs, ensure ethics is, there are no compromises. You please inbuild ethics into it. There are no shortcuts when you are adapting a technology as a business strategy in terms of propelling your business decisions It is no more a fad, it's a boardroom discussion now. I mean, that's where I'm not sure, Karthik, if I answered your question satisfactorily, but that's what my take is.
Thank you so much. I think that was very, very insightful from all three of you. Ravi, so the last bit that you mentioned around the ethics aspect of it leads me to the next question that I do have for Vineet, sir. This comes on the basis of the premise that transparency is something, we've looked at it from the perspective of building just now. We're looking at it from a different lens when you're dealing with corporates. Any customer typically has concerns over transparency, over wanting to understand what has gone into the tech and how things are utilized from their end. From your lens, I would like to understand, having donned the investment hat in the past, would access to capital become better if there were transparency requirements under regulations, which then require for any person building anything AI to be disclosing specific aspects of it?
I think transparency is very useful, not necessarily just for the being good citizens, understanding what's happening, right? I think transparency is very useful for a different aspect, which is just the market. And let me elaborate why I am saying that, right? If you look at what's happening with the generational models and the evolution, just go back about a year and a half back, I think the most pivotal discussion in transparency started then when, first when the cultural discrimination started happening in models and people started realizing and recognizing that, and then there's a lot of research effort into understanding that, right? And what we understood then was that the models that are being trained and have been trained are all WEIRD, wired models or weird models, whatever you want to call them. Western educated, industrial, rich, democratic, right? So any model or any AI today that's, and when I say AI broadly, I'm just generalizing it to Gen AI, is responding to you, is responding like somebody in Ohio or Illinois or Midwest America or somewhere who's rich, educated, democratic is responding to things. Where does that cause a problem? That causes a problem across everywhere, including how I'm thinking, how I'm handling situations. More now we start using agents, how they're going to behave in terms of the data they're seeing, right? So, for example, how common good over public good over a single person thing, the Western cultural differences, our cultural differences, so on and so forth. All these are coming into play. So weird models are now being replaced by more general models. India is starting to look at it from their own perspective. But what's important in transparency is if I am a company that's rooted here, that's going to use AI for certain activities, what I would like to certainly know is 2 or 3 things. One, transparency in terms of what is the data that you trained the model with, right? Is my model responding and reacting the way it should for somebody in Kanchipuram or Kumbakonam and not necessarily somewhere else, right? Is it doing that, or is not doing that? Right? Is it doing it for people sitting in Delhi, working in consuming content in English, and is it just a weird Indian model and not necessarily an Indic model, right? So these are kinds of questions that we need to ask, and transparency we need to bring in terms of data transparency, what provenance of training data is being used, right? What's the diversity of data that's being used, what the AI is actually being put into. That's something I think will lead discussions and conversations, and if perhaps ESG is any indication of how that might go, I think directionally that's the path that it might take. So obviously depending on how you're biasing your AI, money is going to go to solve the problems that you're trying to solve, right? So I think money follows all these disclosures and not necessarily leads to disclosures. But I think both will first go hand in hand. Sometimes the hand might be forced by one over the other.
Again, sir, thank you so much for this context. My next question is to Suren, sir. Again, looking at it more from the perspective that transparency, one, has its own pros and cons, but I'd like to understand from your view, where do you think we should draw the line when it comes to transparency versus losing a competitive edge as a business that's looking to build? If you're looking to build scale, when there's too much transparency, you perhaps end up losing a competitive edge. Would like to understand where you feel we should draw the line.
Yeah, Karthik, I think that's actually a fine line, right? Where you lose the competitive edge or you get slowed down because of too much red tape. Transparency largely stems from lack of trust, right? So transparency is the somewhat a solution, but the underlying problem is the lack of trust. And the lack of trust comes in, I think, two forms in the AI world largely, but there are other forms as well. One is where personal data is involved, right? So where customer personal data is involved, where you're collecting phone numbers, biometric information, identifiable information, right? And two, like Sir talked about, the training data set that is actually used to build these models and the vectors that actually go into it, right? So what we have to do is to actually solve for trust and make sure that consumers of the product have the trust. So I think it's very, very important to have rough standards in place, whether it's GDPR or any other set of standards we want to adhere to. But definitely have standards to have the ability for the other consumer to actually understand that you're not breaching their trust, right? And this is super important, but at the same time, I think build fast, break fast, and iterate. That's how, as an entrepreneur, we usually do. But I think today there's a lot of guardrails in place that we can bake in from day one to build some of that trust with the consumer, right? I'll just also talk about one example. I think it was just yesterday, actually. I was conversing with, and I'll talk about how I actually use this concept, right? So I was conversing with a CTO of a very large, it was actually the managing director, CTO, and strategy person of a very large corporate. They have about 10,000 stores in India, right? Very large corporate. So they were looking at our solution and implementing in this visual analytics across their stores. So the question came up, can you actually implement all of this in our environment? We don't want it in your environment. I said, so that is largely a lack of trust. Tell me what are your concerns, and let me tell you how our product solves for all of that, right? So he went through a few of his concerns, and we said, hey, you know what? If it's a data concern, we give you the ability to download all the data. If it's a privacy concern, we don't take any of the private information like phone numbers, customer details. So as I went through that checklist of things that built trust, and showed him the transparency, I could see a dynamic shift in the way he looked at us. So I think that's important for product builders, entrepreneurs, is to maintain that trust with your consumer and your customers, and you can do that through the product, right?
Thank you so much for that, Suryan sir. Ravi sir, my question to you, we've heard two perspectives, one in relation to the side of transparency, the aspect in relation to trust building. We've also heard several other of perhaps the industry leaders down south having different perspective around looking at how cost efficiency is ridiculously important. We've also got practical deployment, which perhaps is a priority. My question to you is, based on the role that you occupy today, do you see some sort of a trend emerging in terms of what you could call the South Indian model in relation to AI development?
I think that's I would probably say that's a little bit of a tricky question, but I think probably I'll take a step back and answer that a little differently, Karthik. The return on investment, specifically when we talk about AI, is not measured through vanity; it's measured through velocity. I think every enterprise leader, they understand this perspective quite clearly. What it used to be a vanity is moved away from there to velocity now, and people are absolutely measuring what's going to be my return on investment. Where am I going to stand to get benefit out of it? And therefore, the most important change which I foresee, not only for the organization which I lead and from the industry peers and the kind of discussion what we have, AI is now necessarily becoming a business strategy. Okay? And the most important thing to remember, competitive advantage shift from access to application, right? And if you look at 3 years ago, 2 years ago, when we talk about AI, we were talking about access. Now we are completely talking about application. Therefore, to give a perspective to it, fundamental shift is in terms of, I would say, three different set of compartmentalization. One, why do I need it? That's a question number one. If I need it, when do I need it? It's now or tomorrow or never. The third is if I need it now, what is the money which I need to invest into it? And once I'm clear on these fundamental parameters, the underlying principle comes from a very, very simple fact that what is going to be my return on investment. The kind of return which I'm expecting is absolutely not through, vanity, it's absolutely velocity. I'll take a small example. It's a global example, a subject which you should be very, very familiar with. We all heard about a company called LexisNexis, right? It's $2-3 billion company today. Look at the kind of a transformation journey what they've undergone only in the past 5 years. COVID taught them extremely well. Their subscription model is doing great. And there are a lot of examples are emerging from India itself, right? Going back to my original version that we are absolutely on a right time, right frame of mind. And we also have a very, very strong urge that we wish to lead the world by example. That means entrepreneurs, product developers, service organization, enterprises, small, medium, or big, government are looking within. Today, I'm not designing a product. I'm not designing an AI engine. I'm not designing anything pertaining to AI or technological, keeping in mind saying that I am going to cater to the world market and world demands. No. We have enough success story. We have enough use cases. And therefore, we are able to convince that the investment, whatever we'll be making in the strategy, the return on investment on account of velocity, because nobody can talk about the kind of a volumes India can exhibit. Okay, the sheer transactional volume for any application. Forget about access. I'm talking about application. The sheer velocity of any implementation of a new strategy using AI as a backend engine is going to set trends for the global market. Therefore, I personally see the transition is all about velocity. The transition is all about application. The transition is all about adaptation.
Thank you so much, Ravi, sir. I think this, again, the conversations that we've had in the past 3 questions to the 3 of you leads me to my next question to Vineet, sir. Vineet, sir, in your last answer, you also did briefly touch about the fact that there is a bit of a paradox. There's, on one side, of course, so far, we've looked at it from a perspective of building. We've looked at it from a perspective of the customer's lengths of transparency and trust building. Now I'm trying to look at this from the perspective of people that are the workforce, the employees. Now we've got one side of this where every single day we're seeing people getting laid off. But when you talk to corporates are saying, we're not able to find people that are capable enough today. And from your view, I would like to understand, where do you feel the disconnect lies between the education aspect and employment?
See, I think you've hit the nail on the head, right? I think what data has shown is about 16% of the employable IT workforce today is AI ready. That's what, by their own admission, the IT sector says, by their own assessments, 16% is ready, and therefore there's a huge gap. What's also happening is the pace of evolution is so fast that people do not know where and how to go and get upskilled, right? And what you get skilled in is kind of getting replaced either in 3 weeks or 3 months, you don't know. Right? And what that means for us is this is not an upskilling game alone, right? And I think, again, I'll go back to, if Accenture has made a decision that my 800,000 people with 80,000 data AI people are not yet ready to solve a problem but 400 people sitting somewhere else can actually come in and solve. And their leader, who's a quantum physicist who has nothing to do with IT, can become my global CTO. Again, I go back to that signal because that signal has the answer, right? And that signal has the answer because what that signal is telling us is it's a cognitive shift in terms of how things are happening, right? For example, I don't know how many of us over the end of the year, early this year, last week, were tracking, but Anthropic just announced that 100% of their Claude LLM is being written by Claude code. There's no humans writing it anymore. Right? They just made that announcement about 10 days ago, or maybe slightly earlier, right? What does that mean? Right? It comes back to what Google is now identifying as what it's calling the 70% paradox. Right? 70% of the code AI is able to figure out itself. The other 30% to figure out necessarily is not what we've understood as developers to figure out, but it's becoming a judgment thing. Right? So software is moving from writing code to exercising judgment in technology. That shift is not just a skilling shift, but it's a mindset shift, right? It's a training, it's a cognitive shift. Right? How deeply are people thinking about it? How are we handling it? There are pockets trying to address this, but until this gets widely addressed, the leaders are going to take the opportunities and run with it, right? And this gap is going to exist. But what that also allows you to do or is bringing about is there are two people sitting in Bihar writing some code on some LLM's memory layer that's getting funded $10 million from Silicon Valley. Right? There's capital from Bay Area finding its way into China through Singapore through the Facebook Manas deal. Right? So eventually capital and resources will find their way to connect and get to each other. And the financial engineers today who are so savvy will make it happen, including you lawyers, right? So that is going to happen. And as that happens, the opportunity is opened up, right? Today there is not knowing coding is not a disadvantage anymore. And if you were to draw a parallel, it is like Y2K, right? I remember people were in all kinds of things, including chartered accountants and mechanical engineers and all that suddenly started becoming IT professionals have done very well for themselves, right? You're taught, you're sat, you're taught, go there, change this date field, MMDD YY to MMDD YY. And that made so many hundreds of thousands of people's career and millions of careers in what we see today in India. It's something similar is happening in AI, so we need to rethink how we are approaching this more critically, right? And there are pockets that are rethinking this, but that itself, unfortunately or fortunately, it's a mode, so it's not very public. And that's really what's happening. But once the early mover advantage is established, I think in the next 2-3 years, all these processes will come up.
Thank you, Vineet sir. Ravi sir, I have a question to you in this regard, just based on what Vineet sir was saying. Considering the fact that, of course, as technology, I think AI has been moving very, very quickly, evolving really quickly. From this perspective, if you have a workforce, for somebody who sits at the helm of big corporate, if you have a workforce that perhaps does not carry the necessary skill set, there is an onus to have to reskill them. And in your view and your experience, do you feel that putting this onus back onto the government or for corporate to assume that role would work better?
Okay, I think it's a very, very, very broad subject, Karthik. I mean, what you're touching upon is that, there is definitely a skill gap does exist in every aspect of enterprise, every aspect of government. But I think the most important thing is that, when I really wanted to be there where I want to be, and if I find the skill gap is the one thing which is actually not letting me move forward, it becomes the responsibility of the corporate to ensure that upskilling is done at an investment. I mean, this is again part of the return on investment. If I need to, let me start by a small example. Today, where is AI is doing a very dominant role in an enterprise. If you look at the corporate India, I'm just giving a I'm giving an example and supported with the data. More than 64% of your transactional volume are mundane in nature. When I'm saying mundane in nature, it's a financial transaction, it's a HR related transaction, it's a day-to-day transaction, which is mandated by the governance and the statutory requirement of the Indian government, right? This would not require a greater amount of intelligence for a person to sit day in and day out and to do the same work, and that's where errors happen. And many enterprises in the country today, as my earlier panelist was mentioning, COVID is a very good learning for us. Across the globe, many enterprises have made a considerable amount of a good size of investment in terms of automating all these mundane tasks, therefore reducing the dependency on the human being. Let's accept that. But as it replaces the human, as I was mentioning to you earlier, no, it didn't. Human matters the most more than the algorithms, right? Yes, we do have shortfall of skill sets. We do have a huge crisis in India by 2030. We will have a substantial 57 million population of Indian youth below the age group of 25. And you'll be surprised to know, there are only 7% of them are employable to move the technological world. So there's a gap exists. Now, there's a lot of initiative which is done by the government of India. Many enterprises, big, small, medium, they're investing heavily in terms of upskilling their own set of people, upskilling the people for others, and people themselves are encouraged to get upskilled. For example, some organizations, some enterprises do encourage people to go out. They have something called a job rotation. They are allowing them to learn newer skills. Therefore, the race to kill the mundane, the race to bring in efficiency, the race to bring in velocity in terms of measuring the return on investment is forcing people to invest in upskilling, whether it's internal or external. That's going to happen. And I cannot pinpoint saying that the owners would remain with an enterprise or with the government, because as my earlier panelist was mentioning, the technology is evolving so fast, so much so that what you learned yesterday is becoming history today. And what you learn today might get replaced tomorrow. Therefore, the continuous upskilling is the only way forward, both at an individual level, at an organization level. Therefore, the owners remains with the change leaders, with the business leaders, and enterprise in a whole. They need to bring in the cultural element, kill the resistance, ensure that know which way that your job or your position is under threat. By upskilling yourself, you are contributing positively to the welfare of the enterprise is what I feel personally would be the change element in case if we want to aggressively pursue this line.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ravi sir. I think that's, again, very, very helpful insight, which takes me to the direction, Suren sir, from the perspective of what you've achieved with Tango AI, where you've caused for some significant automation which otherwise earlier perhaps required a lot of human intervention and human effort. And just borrowing from what Ravi sir and Vineet sir have also pointed out through this session, my question to you is, upskilling, of course, while that is a requirement, do you feel, given also that you touched on the inertia and the resistance piece earlier, do you feel that AI is also causing for new kinds of roles and jobs for humans and not truly shutting down their relevance?
Yeah, Karthik, I think overarching theme of upskilling and what do we do with human capital in the realm of AI is first off, it's a real problem, right? It's something that we have to stop and think about and kind of navigate from here. Because so many things are possible today that were not earlier possible, right? And I think that's where there are two divides of this. In terms of what this does to workforce. Because there is technology like, let's say, video analytics and video AI technology that make what was earlier not possible, right? So earlier you could not have human capital invested in just looking at hours and hours of footage across, let's say you have a big stadium, you're trying to find something that happened. It would literally take a group of 50, 100 people looking through hours and hours of footage, right? It's almost impossible, and you can't do that in a regular fashion. So technology today is empowering humans to be able to do such things, right? And I think the early adopters are typically folks that are getting themselves empowered and able to kind of harness technology to do their jobs better. So that's one set of folks where I think the upskilling really comes in adoption and what they're doing. Where this is a challenge and where I think we need to really look at is tech, right? Tech companies that have body shopped large amounts of folks to actually do hard coding and do coding, right? And we've seen this evolution in our own company where we have engineers. We're still not as large. We're a small company of about 100 engineers, where what we've done is actually empower the engineers to use the latest AI tools to do things faster. And why we emphasize that is I want everyone to become a product person as well, because I think that's where the real knowledge comes in, and that's probably where we had a gap earlier, where we had a set of engineers just coding, right? Like Sir said, all they had to do was go in and change the date format, right? That's how they started becoming developers in some sense. And today they have to be product plus developers. I think that's a fundamental shift, especially in the world where we're seeing companies, billion-dollar companies, unicorns, built by a single person. Right? We have several examples, not so many in India, but outside, where we have billion-dollar companies built by a small team of people or a single person, where there's literally everything is automated, right from lead generation to coding to software getting deployed and customers consuming it. So I think that's where we need to empower our tech talent to be more product architect focused as well in the realm of AI and really harness the tools.
Sure. Thank you so much for that again, Suren sir. I just have 3 short questions for each of you. Think of it as a rapid fire, maybe 30 seconds each. I will go first to Ravi sir. Ravi sir, in your view, what is the single organizational change that perhaps businesses should make that's going to help Indian enterprises move AI projects successfully from pilot to scale?
I think the single most agenda is that if you want to remain as a dinosaur, God bless you. If you want to become agile, you are left with no other option but adapting the technology. As simple as that.
Sure.
Right? We have classic examples. I don't want to name multiple brands in the country. Those who quickly adapted are making waves. The one who could not are fading away. So therefore, adapt as much as possible, as fast as possible.
Thank you, sir. Suren sir, my question to you. How can South India position itself to function as an AI hub?
I think skilling is probably the answer to that, where we really help our talent become better product architects and harness AI technology faster than some of the other talent out there.
Thank you. And my last question to you, Vineet sir. What should corporates do to strike that efficient balance between profit making while ensuring safety of the people that use their products?
What do you specifically mean when you say that?
Did not jeopardize the end user. What, in your view, is that one thing that a corporate should perhaps do?
I think especially with AI, what's important is I think transparency is table stakes, right? I think transparency in terms of what your model can and cannot perform, I think is table stakes. And without that, people are leading to multiple risks, including the core risk of making judgments, not knowing what the model is giving them, right? Or what the AI is telling them, right? So I think understanding that bias that the AI comes with, just like all of us come with our own biases, is very important. And that disclosure, I think, should be mandatory for every AI.
Thank you so much for this wonderful, insightful session. I think we've got some beautiful perspectives from the three of you. Thank you so very much. Over to Akshay.
Karthik, thank you so much. I think it is well orchestrated and organized. Appreciate that. I'm sorry that I could not make it personally, but yet I appreciate your time and the great opportunity. Thank you so much, the panelists. I appreciate being part of this great panel.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, Karthik.
Thank you to the panel for an engaging and insightful discussion on AI and ethics, covering customer perspectives, cost efficiency in AI-driven business models, and the impact of AI on the workforce. It was a truly enriching session. Before we move on to our next panel, I'd like to present the token of appreciation, and this will be handed over by Ms. Varalakshmi Arunachalam, partner and head of the real estate practice at Peritum Partners. Ravi sir, your memento will be handed over to you personally in your office.
That's fine. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you so much, Valakshmi. Thank you, Karthik. I appreciate that.
Hi all, we can reconvene in 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes for the next panel. Thank you. Hi all, we'll be starting the next session in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So if you have anybody who's outside, you can please call them in. Thank you. Okay, nice to see you back from the break. I hope you had a good tea. Just what safeguards, accountability, and human oversight should look like in practice. Inclusive AI Lab, an ambassador at the Global